Hey y'all, it's me, CheesyPaninie. Today I thought I'd take on one of the challenges from my list, which is the Environmentalist Challenge. The goal is to build something without destroying or removing any tiles from a world-generated area. Now, I'm going to take it easy and not stress too much over vines, plants, or pots getting destroyed. And if I accidentally remove or swap a block, I'll just place it back. So first off, I generated a new world and began exploring the area. I didn't really want to build anything underground for this challenge and decided to stick to the surface. There were 3 areas that caught my eye, which all turned out to be forest biomes. The first area had a couple of dirt blocks scattered around with a pit that led to a cave and was next to some living wood trees. The second area was a lot more simple and had this terrain that curved into an almost spiral next to some bodies of water. The third area had a really large pit with a hill with a cave inside. They were all pretty good areas, but the one area that I liked the most was the third one because the shape was so irregular and I thought it was the most challenging one to build on. Once I decided on the area, I illuminated a place with torches and made a framework for my build using adamantite beams to plan out its shape and size. The concept for my build was pretty simple, to create a hermit's house. I had this story in my head where some guy on the run found himself in the middle of the forest and made himself a house here several years ago. And while he knew how to build things, he's not the most polished builder, so I wanted it to be a little rough around the edges, a little asymmetrical, not very neat, and kind of looks like it could fall apart, but is actually sturdy enough to survive a storm. I put a lot of stairs and ropes to connect some rooms together, but I wasn't sure how to make this one area accessible since there was this line of grass blocks over here that I'm not allowed to destroy, and I was already planning to put a well over here as his source of water. So I made a workaround and created a fake hole using shadow paint on the 2 spots and placed teleporters over it to connect them together. This will make it look as if there was a pathway leading to it, especially once I've added more details. After I was done with the basic framework, I started picking out the materials I wanted to use. I like to lay them out like this before I start because I find it a lot easier to figure out which materials work or doesn't work together this way. The materials I chose were those that didn't have clean or symmetrical lines and were mostly uneven to make it look rough and natural. I keep thinking about what kind of story or person was behind the build, and like I said, this was a hermit, a guy on the run with a not very advanced building skill. But even though I have them all placed neatly like this, I still ended up not using some of them and adding a couple more. Despite that, this is still a lot more efficient than just working on things immediately and picking every material as I go. If you want a quick way to view blocks and walls, consider checking out my Blocks and Walls palette on my website. It's still heavily a work in progress and I still need to update it, but it can be quite helpful in situations like this. Link is in the description. The first thing I worked on in this build was the stairs leading to the house. I wanted it to look like it curved a bit, and to make that illusion, I made the base a couple of platforms wide, which narrowed at the top. Another combination I have grown to love is using dynasty wood blocks as support and placing bamboo blocks in the intersections for that tied rope look. You could also pair these with bamboo blocks with rich mahogany and shadewood for the same look. I then put walls underneath to make them look fuller and some blocks at the end so that I will be able to walk upstairs without the need to hammer the platforms into stairs. And to finish it off, I placed some bamboo fences, but not complete the whole thing to make it look like some parts were broken off as time went by. The key detail for these kinds of builds is putting in imperfections. It can be in the form of holes, cracks, or irregularities. As for the house, I wanted it to look like a competent house that could stand the test of time, but not very neatly done, so I stacked some wood together, made this support beam to keep it from falling, and some uneven lines of rope that were just kind of put together and got a bit worn out from use. I also didn't feel like using a door for this house and instead used the Lost Hopes of Man banner by the entrance. It's not a very secure door, but we could say that he used to have a door and this was a placeholder. but before he was able to replace it, he left and was unable to return. I went a little crazy with the walls and interchanged rich mahogany and shadewood walls along with some gaps here and there. I don't actually know how it will look like in real life, but it seemed like a fun way to design it, so I went ahead and did it. Another thing that I discovered worked really well was interchanging rich mahogany and shadewood as I made the walls of the house to make it look even more raggedy. I've also actuated blocks at the middle to serve as a support beam, but this can easily be replaced by beams or fences as well. Now that I'm happy with the house's form, it's time to give the room some purpose. For the very top room, I wanted to be able to use ranged weapons to shoot monsters or enemies, so I removed one block and hammered the one below it, so I had enough space to attack, but not so much that flying enemies will be able to enter easily. I also placed a chair, which is actually a toilet, over here because hey, it's pretty tiring to shoot zombies all night, you know? I actually went ahead and placed a weapon rack with a blowgun and a barrel filled with seeds, so it's ready to go. I wasn't quite sure about what to do with the other rooms yet, so I decided to jump on over to the other parts for now. I made the stairs inside pretty much the same way as the one outside, except for the fences. For this area, I wanted it to be some kind of well, which is the hermit's source of water, and I wanted it to be the same color as the oasis instead of the usual deep blue color, so I placed an oasis fountain here for now, which I later placed in a more hidden area. To make it look older and abandoned, I also placed a couple of cobwebs here and there, especially the gaps under the stairs and the corners of the house. As for this awkward line here, I really couldn't remove it because of the rules, so I decided to add more dirt around it and completely closed it off from the other part of the house. For the entrance to this room, I hid 3 bamboo candles with shadow paint and some switches that could activate the teleporter and let you travel to the area underneath. I don't really need so many switches, I just prefer to have them there so that you could easily enter by clicking anywhere at the top part of the entrance. And the reason for why I didn't place torches at the sides instead is because it wouldn't make sense. Why would there be lit up torches at an abandoned house? Unless it's a ghost or something. That'd be kind of creepy. Anyways, I wanted to have a secret room underneath the house where the hermit sleeps and keeps his food supply. I put a little more detail to the well and opened it up to the other side to let some water out to make a pond where the hermit would wash his clothes or take a bath. I used streamers, actuated mahogany, and sail to make the clothesline. But of course we can't let him have no toilet at all, so I used a temple music box because it resembled one of those medieval toilets that had no indoor plumbing. I actually used that in a previous medieval build as well, so the hermit probably had to empty it out himself. Probably to the cave or outside, which would serve as fertilizer for the trees or other plants. Just above it would be a closet made with living wood doors, a living wood platform, a book, and a sandstone column. The sandstone column painted gray can pass off as folded sheets or clothes. And over here I decided to place a campfire with something to sit on, wooden beams and platforms so the hermit would have a place to warm himself up and cook his meals. Let's get back to the main house. I have decided to make the second floor a workshop of sorts and place a couple of crafting stations and racks, while the third floor has a sharpening station for his weapons. The first floor only has a spear rack for easy access for defense, and also because I didn't want to overload the place with so many items. And one more detail to add to the bedroom to give it a little bit of heart, I placed the Terrarian Gothic painting and painted it brown to make it look old and faded. This could be the only picture he had with his significant other before he went on the run. And you might be wondering, why did the hermit run away? What did he do and where is he now? Do you guys have any theories? Let me know down in the comments below. The main house is pretty much done, but I had this idea of putting an apple tree that was on the verge of being uprooted from the hill next to the hermit house. The tree used to stand tall and firmly on that hill until a very powerful storm uprooted it. In the midst of the storm, the hermit quickly built some support beams above his house in order to save it. The beams were kinda shoddy, but it was strong and sturdy enough to do the job. And because of that, he was able to not only save his house, he was also able to save the tree that served as one of his sources of food for years. One thing you should pay attention to when making builds with some kind of story behind it is the effects of items on its surroundings. In this instance, this tree would be shedding leaves all year, and since this house has been abandoned, it makes sense to have dried leaves everywhere because no one had been around to clear them out. I also placed a couple of mushrooms on the trunk and roots of the tree. I learned that when you see some mushrooms on the tree, it means parts of the tree is rotting or it may already be dead. In this case, it's rotting inside and the fruit it currently has could be its last ones. And there you have it, the hermit's house. This is definitely different from my usual style of building, but I enjoyed it a lot. It's closer to the way I usually build things in the All Biome Challenge series, but since I don't have a time limit, I get to put more detail in it that I normally don't get to do. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I plan to do a couple more challenge videos like this in the future. And if you guys are interested in checking out the map, there's a link to a free map download down below. Like this video if you enjoyed it, comment what you think, and subscribe for more videos. But for now, I'm just gonna go do my thing, and you guys do your thing, and I'll see you guys later. Take it easy, stay cheesy.